This is a story of Ijeli masquerade. In Ndiomu village, the Ijeli masquerade was revered as the most majestic and powerful figure in the community. Its grand appearance occurred only once every 5 months, marking a highly anticipated event for both villagers and visitors from distant lands. Dede, the head of the Ijele court, was deeply committed to the preserving and protecting the community's cultural heritage. Though his dedication brought him little in terms of financial reward, his family, especially his son, Ijeuwa, often struggled to have 3 meals a day. A fact that deeply frustrated Ijeuwa. He couldn't understand why his father's extremely position didn't afford them a better life. Despite his financial struggles, Dede was a man of integrity and selflessness, devoted to the welfare of Ndiomu and the honor of the Ijele traditions. However, Ijeuwa had other ambitions, and his disappointment began to grow. Mr. Smith, a tourist to Ndiomu who sought artifacts to buy from the locals, met Ijeuwa and made an enticing offer of $40,000 to Ijeuwa. Ijeuwa could hardly contain his excitement at the prospect of selling the sacred mask of the Ijeli masquerade. In his mind, this would be the perfect way to escape the poverty that had always haunted his family. Trying to gauge his father's openness to the idea, he approached Dede with a seemingly innocent question. Is it possible for someone to sell the mask of Ijele? Dede was stunned. His expression was a mixture of shock and disappointment as he looked at his son, struggling to find the words. Finally, he replied, "This is unthinkable. How did you come up with such a question?" Undiscouraged, Ijeuwa invented a plan. One evening, he waited until Dede had completed his duties at the sacred grove and left. Under the cover of night, he led Mr. Smith to the grove, confident that his scheme would work. As they reached the sacred altar where the mask was kept, Ijeuwa extended his hand to lift the mask from its stand, thinking of the riches that awaited him. But as soon as his fingers touched the mask, an inexplicable force seized him. His hand felt as though it had fused with the mask, rendering him unable to move. Ijeuwa struggled in vain, his face contorted with fear and disbelief. Mr. Smith, horrified by the turn of events, backed away, his eyes wide with terror. The foreigner fled, abandoning Ijeuwa and his dreams of wealth in the dark, silent grove. The next morning, Dede returned to the grove for his daily rituals. To his utter shock, he found Ijeuwa lying on the ground, still as if asleep. A haunted look on his face. Dede shook him awake, his voice firm and disappointed as he asked, "Who gave you permission to come to the grove?" Ijeuwa, overwhelmed and unable to explain, scrambled to his feet and dashed out of the grove, his heart pounding as he replayed the uncanny events of the night. He now understood that the Ijeli mask was far more than a beautiful artifact. In fact, it was a powerful force that demanded reverence and loyalty, and he did not take kindly to betrayal. After the terrifying experience in the grove, Ijeuwa kept silent, refusing to tell anyone about what had happened that night. But it wasn't long before Mr. Smith reached out to him again. Mr. Smith explained that he had left Ijeuwa alone because he thought Ijeuwa had merely fallen asleep. He then made a new offer, raising the price to $50,000 if Ijeuwa could bring him the Ijeli Mask. This time, determined to succeed, Ijeuwa consciously approached his father with questions about the powers of the Ijeli masquerade, hoping to find some guidance to avoid angering the mask. Dede, pleased with his son's interest in the tradition, he gladly explained the do's and don'ts of the Ijele. The most critical rule he warned was abstinence. Anyone who planned to enter the groove and approach the mask could not engage in intimacy with any woman for 7 days beforehand. Violating this rule would risk incurring the wrath of the masquerade, a wrath with potentially catastrophic consequences. With this knowledge, Ijeuwa carefully observed the rule. He lied to his girlfriend Ozima, telling her they had to refrain from intimacy for 2 weeks because he wanted to focus on making money for their future. Feeling confident that he had now covered all his bases, Ijeuwa went back to the groove one night, took the sacred Ijeli Mask, and handed it over to Mr. Smith. The European was thrilled, thanking Ijeuwa and giving him $55,000 in appreciation. But almost immediately after the mask left the groove, strange occurrences began to unfold in Ndiomu village. Crops withered overnight and livestock mysteriously fell ill. The rivers, once clear and abundant, became murky, and a strange silence fell over the village. People began to whisper that the spirits were angry, sensing that something sacred had been disturbed. Days passed, and the once thrilling village of Ndiomu began to descend into chaos. The elders gathered, performing divinations to understand the source of the misfortune. It didn't take long for their rituals to reveal the truth that the sacred Ijeli Mask was gone, stolen from the grove, and with it, the protection it offered to Ndiomu had disappeared, leaving the village vulnerable to curses and calamities. The village elders of Ndiomu, distressed by the series of calamities, consulted the oracle for a solution. The divination was clear and merciless. To appease the gods and restore peace to the village, Dede, the custodian of the Ijele, must offer his son Ijeuwa as a sacrifice. Dede was devastated, torn between his duty to Ndiomu and his love for his only son. But Ijeuwa had already fled to Europe with his girlfriend Ozima, determined to enjoy the wealth he had gained from the sale of the sacred mask. In Europe, Ijeuwa initially lived lavishly, using the money to indulge in luxurious he had once only dreamed of. But his peace was short-lived. Soon, he began experiencing strange visions, flickering images of Ijeli Mask appearing in his dreams, its eyes fixed on him with a cold, penetrating gaze. Every night, the dreams grew more vivid and terrifying, with the Ijeli spirit dancing around him, whispering words he couldn't understand. He would wake up drenched in sweat, haunted by the unmistakable sense that he was being watched. As the days passed, the visions began intruding even on his waking hours. Shadows loomed over him, strange sounds echoed in his mind, and he often felt a cold presence just behind him. His girlfriend noticed his change as he became withdrawn, muttering to himself and jumping at every sound. Unable to escape the relentless torment, Ijeuwa's mind began to unravel. He would scream in the middle of the night, claiming that the Ijele was in the room watching him, waiting. Soon, he couldn't tell dreams from reality. In public, he would lash out at strangers, shouting incoherently about spirits and curses. His once promising life in Europe became a nightmare as the haunting spirit of the Ijeli masquerade clung to him, driving him into madness. Meanwhile, back in Ndiomu, Dede and the villagers continued their rituals and sacrifices, praying fervently for peace to return. But until the stolen mask was restored and the debt of Ijeuwa's betrayal paid in full, the gods would remain unappeased and the curse over the village would continue. After months of enduring Ijeuwa's worsening madness and haunted cries about the Ijele spirit, Rosima, his girlfriend, finally reached her breaking point. She contacted the local authorities and Ijeuwa was detained and subsequently deported back to Nigeria. While Rosima stayed behind, nourishing her new life in a foreign land, Ijeuwa found himself forcibly returned to Ndiomu, a broken man with nowhere else to go. Upon his arrival in Ndiomu, the villagers wasted no time. They took Ijeuwa straight to the shrine, where Dede and the elders had prepared for the long overdue cleansing ritual. The ceremony was painful and terrifying, with chants and libations meant to appease the spirits and remove the stain of his betrayer. As Ijeuwa was cleansed and offered in sacrifice to the gods, a sober peace settled over the village. Slowly, the rivers cleared, crops began to grow again, and the village animals regained their health. However, though normalcy returned, the heart of Ndiomu's heritage, the sacred Ijeli Mask, was lost forever. The village tried in vain to contact Mr. Smith, but he was unreachable, vanishing as quickly as he had come. Without the Ijeli Mask, Ndiomu lost the spirit of its once thriving cultural tourism. The annual Ijele festival, which has brought visitors from far and wide, was no more. The community mourned the loss of their heritage, knowing that the mask was now beyond their reach, its essence confined to a foreign land. Dede, weighed down by grief and guilt over his son's actions, passed away 2 years later, leaving behind a fractured legacy. Ijeuwa, stripped of his father's honor and his once bright future, was left destitute, wandering the village he had betrayed, an outcast among his people. His former friends and family avoided him, seeing only the man who had caused them their heritage and prosperity. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Mr. Smith opened a grand museum showcasing the Ijeli Mask as its centerpiece. Visitors from around the world flocked to see the mysterious artifact, paying handsomely in dollars and pounds for the privilege. For them, it was a piece of exotic history. For the people of Ndiomu, it was a painful reminder of betrayal, loss, and the price of a single man's greed. As tourists marveled at the mask in glass displays, the true spirit of Ijele was left behind, forever tied to the soil of Ndiomu, where it had once blessed the people and guided their lives. It was later revealed that Ijeli Mask had no power in the foreign land. Back there in Ndiomu, sacrifices, rituals were performed for the Ijeli Mask. But over there in the foreign land, nobody is attending to it. Hence, its power became impotent. Ijeuwa, trying to pick up the pieces, called his girlfriend Ozima. The reply was very strange because another man has taken over. A man picked the call and told Ijeuwa that he should not disturb his girlfriend for any reason. This is penny-wise, pound-foolish. Ijeuwa died after such heartbreak. Ndiomu did not remain the same after these incidents. This is the story of the people's heritage in a foreign land.